Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Pelican, built tough for all situations. Go to pelican.com. Yak Gadget, for all your fine kayak fishing accessory needs. Go to yakgadget.com. Eastport Marina, on the beautiful shores of Dale Hollow Lake, for all your lodging, kayaking, and fishing needs. Go to eastport.info. Now let's get this show started.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Your host, Brad Hurlbus. And today we have on Nick Martin, who we'll bring in right away. Nick's got this crazy goal of shooting a rooster on public land in every county in Iowa. So I'm super excited to talk to him about that and talk to him how we got started hunting. So welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Brad.
I mean, when I first saw your goal, I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's so cool. And then I noticed you had a Griff right away. So I'm like, heck yeah, this guy's getting after it. He's my type of guy. Like, this is someone I can get along with, right, without ever meeting him.
Yeah, the Griffs definitely make it interesting, and they make it a blast. I mean, all dogs make it a blast, but the Griffs are awesome to hunt with.
I'm a fan of mine. I have to admit that. I mean, I've talked quite a bit about Griffs on this show before. People are well accustomed to what kind of dog I have, and you're not the first Griff owner I've had on. I think you're maybe the third or the fourth already. So there might be a little pattern here. I don't know.
They're definitely becoming more popular by from what I've been seeing. You know, of course, that's a good thing and a bad thing because, of course, you get a few of those people out there breeding for the wrong reasons. But overall, seems like a lot of people are in it for the right reasons. But they're definitely on the upward trend, it seems like, the Griffons.
I would agree with that statement. And you're right. I mean, you have to be careful because if you look at what happened with the lab, there's a lot of breeders out there. Some, like, you wind up having non-hunting labs. I mean, I don't want to say that. I mean, even a dog that's not bred to necessarily hunt could be an amazing hunter. It's a super generalized statement I just made. But overall, when you have breeders just start breeding and not really breeding for the benefit of the breed, just to put puppies on the ground, it can start to dilute things and things get wonky. So I understand exactly what you're saying. Like, popularity is a good thing, but it's like that double-edged sword.
Yep, 100%.
So where did you get started with hunting? I like to start my show like this every time. I think it gives great background info for everyone to kind of know how you came up. Are you a self-taught hunter? Did you take it on in your adulthood, family tradition?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up hunting with my dad and my brother. We would all exclusively pretty much do public hunting, but in the 90s, you could do a lot more door knocking, and there was a lot more access that way. So we did hunt quite a bit of private around the Tama area, which is kind of almost that central eastern side of Iowa. So Dad pretty much got me started. The interesting thing is I'm 34 years old and have pretty much been hunting since I was 5. But because we had some of these, basically we would walk like drainage swales and things of that nature, fence rows, so not big chunks of CRP. There wasn't that kind of grass growing up. So we would hunt these drainage swales, and even though I've hunted most of my younger life, there wasn't like a lot of like, strategizing on these big blocks of CRP, looking for shelter belts and different things that, you hear these guys talk about in South Dakota. Now, the DNR, local county conservations, Pheasants Forever, all sorts of groups have put in a ton of work in the last, 10 years, essentially, 2010. So that'd be about 12 years ago. Iowa hit rock bottom for pheasants. So regardless, mainly grew up hunting with dad and family. But as I got older and started doing kind of this public land chase of 99 counties, I've really just, at an older age, have started to understand grass types, habitat, how they're used together, shelter belts, things like that. So even though I've hunted my whole life, my experience in building that up, that's just kind of come on in the last 4 to 5 years.
Sure. That makes sense. I mean, you kind of started a challenge. You gave yourself a goal, and you're expanding your territories now because now you're talking about hunting in there's 99 counties, obviously, in Iowa. You just said that. So that's a lot of different terrain. I mean, I'm not super familiar with Iowa, but I know the different terrain in Wisconsin. And it's completely different in some spots. So I feel like while you probably don't have the hardwoods like we do in the north, I'm sure you have quite a vast array of terrain, though.
Yeah, I'm slowly learning the state. I'm a lifelong Iowan, but I've spent most of my most of my time here on the eastern side of the state. Familiar with the Des Moines, Ames area, some of those kind of bigger communities, but you get into northeast Iowa, southeast Iowa, way over on that west side of the state. There's the Lust Hills area. It's super intense terrain as far as you get to one county and it's flat as can be, and then you get to the next county and just boom, looks like a freaking mountain. Mountain in our terms of Iowa.
Right,
Comes shooting out of the middle of the ground, and it's just straight up. And so it's definitely presenting some challenge, and also it's a super cool just getting to see all the different things that the state has, because you really don't in any state. I Wisconsin probably be the same way if you started just traveling around each county. Once you kind of start putting yourself in these small communities and things like that, it's super interesting. Just restaurants and parks and all sorts of stuff you come across. You're like, oh, I didn't realize that was here in Iowa.
Sure. And even though it's just one state, I mean, there's got to be quite a bit of different cultures. I mean, like you got to be experiencing those small local towns as you change counties. And I'm sure you're more off the beaten path. You're not probably hopping through big cities. So it's got to be really cool to experience those little micro cultures as you go around the state as well.
Yeah. And you definitely come through some towns where, the school has a lot of in these smaller communities, the schools have kind of pooled together. I don't know what the right terminology is, but basically they've consolidated. That's the word I was looking for. So they've consolidated to these newer schools. So some of these communities, I mean, you can see like the old main streets that they used to have, things like that. They're all dilapidated. Some of them are still thriving. So it's very interesting to see those kind of things as well. Just you come into one town and it's like a ghost town, but you can tell and appreciate what it was in its time. But unfortunately, because of the schools and a lot of stuff, jobs, things like that, it's just kind of pushed some of these people out of these communities. But yeah, definitely, you never know what you're getting into. And I haven't been across a lot of the states, so when I'm getting into new counties to hunt and stuff, a lot of times I've just e-scouted. So it's all new territory to me. So not only am I getting new habitat, I'm getting to check out some new cities, new terrain, stuff like that. So it's all super interesting and keeps me on my toes, to say the least.
Sure. And even, I mean, I don't know how far it is to get from one side of the state to another, but it's far enough you're not going to run there the weekend before to go scout it before you bring your dog. So like e-scouting in your own local state, it can be huge. What tools do you prefer? Are you an Onyx guy? Or are you a hunting scout? Isn't that another one? I mean,
yeah, so I like Onyx. I know a lot of guys talk about it, but one thing that I actually think is kind of underutilized, or maybe I'm not utilizing Onyx to its full capability. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on the app, but when I go on a road trip, I like to put a lot of my targets in places that I've e-scouted on Onyx into my Google Maps. So Google Maps doesn't have those boundaries and things like that. So when I'm in the field, a lot of times I like to use Onyx, or if I'm on the go, I have fields A, B, and C scouted, but there might be a D one kind of nearby. Then I'll pull up Onyx quick. But what I like about the Google Maps feature is, of course, with me doing my 99 counties, time's everything. So, just as far as if I'm traveling halfway across the state, I don't want to be wasting time looking for fields, wasting time, looking for directions, things like that. So I kind of have these preset in my Google Maps, hit the one that I want to, takes me there as far as GPS goes, pull in if there's a park there, I can just click on my next one, takes me right there, and I can get around logistically a lot easier. And then also what personally, one thing I like a little more about Google is I think their satellite imagery is a little better. That is no knock on Onyx. Google is a multi-billion-dollar company. Right. I can only imagine what their satellites look like compared to Onyx. So I was just learning at Pheasant Fest this last weekend. Evidently, last year Onyx came out with like a 3D map tool. So they were kind of telling me to look into that to see if that would be something that I would be able to utilize or like a little better. Because I gave my feedback about the satellites and Google and all that. So
sure.
So that's kind of what I do, the Google and Onyx. And what the other reason I like that Google is when I do the e-scouting, especially upland hunting, I'm trying to look at ag fields and things like that. And sometimes on Onyx, they just that coloring comes back down to the imagery. It's just hard to tell. Is that a grass field? Was that a bean field, a corn field? So if I can jump over to Google and kind of figure out, okay, last year this was beans, next year it should be corn, kind of strategize that way.
Do you use Google Earth at all? Have you started playing with Google Earth?
That's a great question. I have not with hunting. I'm very familiar with Google Earth. Just I when I was in college, I would get on there a lot and just kind of do like virtual globe trotting and stuff like that.
Sure.
So that is something I should utilize.
So the cool thing, and I know a lot of guys use Google Earth. So the roots of our podcast is kayak fishing. That's where our podcast started. Like, this is the only hunting episode in our entire 7-day-a-week programming, right?
Well, if you want to talk Hobies, I mean, I got Hobies and kayaks and fit. We can do that too, Brad.
Oh, wow. Now I'm going to make people mad. Now they're going to be like, you're stepping on my show. No, I'm just kidding. It's not like that. We're a big family. But a lot of the guys have started using Google Earth to roll back time to look at lakes when they're low, to see the structure on the shoreline.
Very smart.
So it might be a tool for you for your e-scouting. And if I was looking to do what you're doing, I think I would do, I mean, you can roll back time to see what fields have been planted when, and maybe get a better idea of what you think might be coming up next. If you saw this was alfalfa, then beans, then corn, maybe it's going to be alfalfa again. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, it might be a kind of a cool tool to add to your arsenal.
No, absolutely. And of course, all that stuff is free as well, which is the great thing about the Google Earth and Google Maps. So that's something definitely I'll have to look into, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about the scouting like that, and I've never mentioned that before on this show specifically, but when you're talking about trying to figure out what an egg field might be next year, if you know the history, that could be huge.
No, 100%. And I'll try to take some notes as well. Sometimes I may be driving through one county to get to another because I have an area that I've specifically targeted, but I'll still throw some notes on my Onyx, like drove past this public place this date and year. Beans were next to it. That way, if I'm ever back, in that area, I can at least have something to kind of reference and go off of.
Sure.
But yeah, jumping on that Google Earth, I'll definitely have to look into that. Do you know if they have an app? I've just done them on a desktop computer.
I don't know if there's an app. I've always just done it on the desktop as well. So
yeah, and it's a pretty complex system. So I mean, I'm sure there is an app, but it probably would be a little more conducive to use on a desktop if you had that.
Probably. It might be just a good tool while you're sitting there trying to plan your next county.
And not to get too far in a rabbit hole, but just throwing this bug out there, Google also has an app that you can put up to the sky at night on your phone, and it'll tell you what constellations you're looking at. That is pretty fun if you're into camping.
We do a lot of camping. We do a lot of camping with the puppy, and well, not a puppy. She's 10, but I still call her my puppy.
Yep.
But we do a ton of camping, and we have played with that before. I mean, especially when you start to get out of the noise pollution, or not noise, but light pollution of a city. Yeah, it's amazing how much you can actually see when you get away from the city and you have an open sky on a clear night.
Yeah, pretty much anytime I've given any of my nieces or nephews or anyone around the phone, your phone's gone the rest of the night. They're sharing and showing everybody what's up in the sky.
But it's great though, because you're making those memories, and that's a huge part of what my show's always been about, is like the traditions, in hunting, like the traditions you carry on, and all those memories and enjoying the experience. I mean, the way my outro to my show is keep chasing that experience, because to me, it's the experience that matters more than the taking of a bird or anything like that. It's that entire experience, which is what makes enjoyable for me.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Brad, because, 34 years old and hunting most of my life, it's those experiences that you remember. You don't remember the big rooster, the big deer. You may have that trophy, and yeah, you may remember those moments. But when you're talking to your friends, doing stuff like this, it's the misses. It's all sorts of the silly things on the road trips that happen, the flat tires, or, in that moment, you're just like, this is miserable. And then you look back and you can laugh on it. This weekend at Pheasant Fest, I was talking to a high school gentleman, and basically he was talking about how frustrating it can be when you're starting out, because you're just missing all the time, and you want so bad to connect and hit a bird. And I'm like, just keep, super young hunter. I'm like, just keep at it, because you're gonna get to a point where you're gonna kill all the bird, whatever you've wanted to, and it's not gonna be about killing that bird anymore. It's gonna transition at some point into your memories, the people you're with, the time you should have killed that bird and it was 5 feet in front of you and the dog did everything perfectly and you just missed for whatever reason. So I know sometimes, especially for that younger crowd, it can be a lot of frustration in regards to, I just want to connect. But, just hang on to those memories and just remember, try to, as miserable as it can be in that moment, try to remember being in that field, because you're going to get older. You're going to be more comfortable with your gun, and to look back and be like, oh my gosh, I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And now, A lot of these kids have access to skeet programs and stuff in their high school that I never did. So a lot of them are turning into very, very great shooters. A lot of women as well. A lot of the skeet people that I run into, it seems like it's almost, I would say 60-40, 60% women, 40% men around us. Now, I don't know nationwide, but it just seems like that's something a lot of younger women have been getting into, that skeet and competition side, which
that's great.
I think that's great. Because one, just get male or female, get them introduced to a gun at a young level, get them comfortable, get them around different kinds of guns. But then you get them a little older and you get them out into a hunting scenario, you get a dog in front of them. They've already got the hard part over of being around a gun and comfortable with a gun. Now you throw a dog in the mix and like, oh my gosh, this is super fun, especially the ladies. I mean, you put a puppy in front of most women and they're automatically attracted to it, babies and everything else. So I think skeet is an awesome transition for a lot of this younger generation to get into upland hunting. And I know a lot of your people are fishing and stuff like that, but it's just, we all need each other, and we're all only getting older. And I think that the uplands are kind of, I don't want to say they're dying, but it's something that everything's cyclical. So I think right now we're seeing a lot of the older generation kind of phase out and get older. And I think there's just a lot of us that it falls on our shoulders to kind of educate the younger youth and try to get them involved and keep things moving in the right direction and conservation and all that kind of stuff. So
I agree 100%. Mentorship is something I focus on every year, taking out hunters that never have been hunting before. So, and I don't focus just on youth either. So I do a lot with veteran programs.
Yeah. Don't forget about the old guys.
But I have found also like that after there's this period after college, I've found that a lot of people want to learn how to hunt, some for their own food, some just for the experience. And I have found a handful of those that I have mentored have continued on. Whereas like, I'm all for mentoring the youth. I think it's great, but I feel like I almost have better retention in the mentoring I've done on that 24 to 30-year-old group than I have on 12 to 15-year-olds. Cause then they hit high school, they hit girls, or boys, and then they hit college. And if they don't have the family to keep them into it, which if I'm mentoring them, odds are they don't come from a hunting family. I feel like they kind of lose it. And it's going to be on them to come back and reach out, where as if like that after college age, and maybe some of these kids had been on mentor hunts. That's a question I haven't always asked, but maybe some had at one point. So they're coming back, but I feel like there's just slightly better retention in that older age group. So I always like to talk about that because I feel like everybody's got this huge focus on like the kids, which I love. I love taking kids out. But in regards to like continuing on our traditions, like the conservation aspect, I feel like that slightly older age group, like that 25 to 30, like those are the ones where if we get them excited, they're going to stay in it.
100%. And I do agree with that, Brad. Like you said, and I was guilty of it myself. You get into college and the end of high school and sports and all that stuff. And also at that age, I just know personally myself, I didn't have time for a dog, and I didn't have money for a dog. Whether it was a cheap dog or expensive dog, doesn't matter. But I just didn't have the time and energy to do the training, dog food, didn't have the space. You know, a lot of times people are living in apartments or still at home or things like that. So I think that makes sense on what you're saying, and I can see that. And I think getting into that probably 25 to almost 35, about where I'm at, is kind of those peak areas where if you got your toes in it while you were younger, and then you have still some passion in there, and you can get linked up with someone else kind of locally or through a training group. That's the perfect age range to kind of get those guys involved. Not only they can help the younger generation, but they're old enough where they can kind of afford some road trips, some dogs, things like that, and can also get out and help some of those other guys. Because like my dad, there's a lot of these guys out there in their 60s or whatever, and they're like, hey, I went out and took you hunting, but now you're all older and have money and running around. Like, don't forget about me sitting at home.
Right.
So, at the same time, like you said, you definitely want to educate the young kids, but the older people they definitely have their own niche as well. And they need to, have resources and people to be able to reach out to get them back into the sport if they'd like to.
And that's another thing which you just touched on too, is the older generation, the generation, especially ones that might not have children, or maybe their children don't hunt, but they enjoyed hunting throughout their years, but they don't want to start another dog. They don't,
Yep.
but
Yeah,
and
they
I
had the dog. The kids are grown up
right,
now. The kids didn't take interest. The dogs died, and now they're like, well, I can't go hunt because I don't got a dog and I don't know anybody. Well,
right. Like that's something to focus. That's something to remember as well. I mean, also the experience of taking someone like that, just for the fact, like the stories, they have years and years of stories, and as you're walking the fields or walking the trails, like those stories are just going to come back and they're going to just randomly roll out, and it's going to be such a unique experience just to hear their experiences from a time where you weren't even hunting, like just how the landscape was and the animals and like the different dog training. Like look how far dog training's come even just in like the
yep.
past 15 years.
And even stuff as simple as like gear. I mean, back then, if you had an electronic e-collar, there was one button, and it was hot, and it was shock that dog. And if that dog
Right.
didn't come, you light it up. And now there's so much that you can control in the the electronics of the dog, to the technical clothing people are buying, and all sorts of things. So yeah, that's another piece of it, Brad, that you get by taking those older people out and hearing about the guns they hunted with and stuff like that may
Right.
not be around anymore. But yeah, and then you come away with even more memories.
Mm-hmm. And just this all around amazing experience that you want to do again and again, right? Because it's just
Yep.
it hits different. I know there's probably new hunters listening to this that are like, because I was this new hunter at one point in time, all I cared about was limits, and you kind of
Yep.
touched on that.
Yep.
But then as limits, I've said this before. I mean, your view kind of changes, and you kind of shift from I need a limit to now it's about the dog. Like I had that shift at one point. I love my dog. I always have, but I mean, I had that change for sure. And then it's now I love the dog work, but now I want to enjoy this entire experience.
And share it with others. A lot of times as you get older,
Exactly.
that's kind of you end in that phase of that mentorship. I'm definitely over the limit phase and in the phase of like enjoying the dog, which is kind of why I started to go do the 99 county thing. But eventually that'll transition. I know to I've hunted, I've been to where I've needed to be. Let's get involved here more locally with the community and get kids out and things like that. And I do mentor hunts now through a local
Sure.
game, Pheasants Forever group. But yeah, it's just interesting how a lot of us kind of you follow that same trend and road.
So before we get like dive deep into dogs that you grew up with and everything else,
Yeah.
because I know that could take out. I know I could fill a whole episode with just dogs alone. I don't want to lose this 99 counties things. Like, where did the idea come from?
So basically, there you see a lot of people that go out west and they do like a West Challenge or the Nebraska Slam or things like that. And at the end of the 2019 season, which technically ended in January of 2020, but the bulk of
Sure.
it is in 2019. I was like, I kind of was to a point where I knew where I could go get birds, and it was fun. It was a blast. But I was like, what is something else I can challenge my dog to get out there and just do something different, challenge her, challenge myself as far as different habitat, going to places and counties we've never seen. And so I was like, well, wonder if anybody's ever tried to get a pheasant in every county in Iowa. I don't know if there's a pheasant in every county of Iowa. I've talked to the Iowa DNR about it. They're like, there is, but might just be on private. But then,
Sure.
this county, you may find some on public in this, hard in our northeast corner of Iowa. It's a lot of hard timber and a lot of
Okay.
rocky terrain. They used to do logging up there. They still do grouse counts. This is nothing against Iowa DNR. I'm not really sure why, because we don't even have like a measurable pool of grouse. I mean, there
Sure.
might be 10 up there. So it's like you can go count them, but until we start getting that habitat turnover that you're probably familiar with and those 10-year spruces and all that stuff, you're just not going to retain any of that.
That's
So
actually really surprising. I mean, because the northeast corner of Iowa is way farther south than what I would consider grouse habitat in the Midwest.
Well, in like the 70s, it was just like phenomenal because they would do a lot of logging up there. So you would get
Got it.
those turnovers. And then I also think that you would get a lot coming down from Minnesota, migrations, things like that. But the
Sure.
terrain up there is very, I'm not a grouse expert by any means, but from what I've been told, it's what they like. The hardwoods, the
Okay.
steep terrain, things like that. I don't know that, waterways. I don't know. I'm learning. I would love to get a grouse in Iowa. I think it's going to be one of those like nearly impossible things. I got one in Wisconsin last year. I was fortunate to get a
Nice.
red phase. This is the first time
Nice.
I ever went grouse hunting and woodcock hunting. So got 4 woodcock and a grouse.
Do you have woodcock that migrate through Iowa? I know we're getting off topic, which happens. But
No,
that's okay.
yeah, that's part of it. That's just the conversation, right? We do, and I just learned about woodcock and grouse hunting in October, so I am going to do some more research here in Iowa. That we have some sand prairies, and evidently they like sand prairies and that kind of habitat. So evidently they move through, but it's one of those things like we have them for a 48-hour window.
So they move through real quick because we have a
Real
decent,
quick, and you got to know what section they're coming through. So it's one of those things where you either catch them or you don't.
Sure, because we have a good. I normally have a good season with them. It's not 48 hours, but I mean our season's open for months. But normally it's the last week or 2 weeks where it's actually worth really going out. At least in southern Wisconsin, where I am.
Yeah.
In northern Wisconsin, the season obviously is a little different up there, and they also hold a little more longer up there. I have found because I'll find them throughout all the month of October some years, depending on how the weather, or I should say, like the beginning of October. It depends on the weather. Like it can be the whole month of October up there, really. But that is one of my favorite little birds to chase, hands down. I love them.
It's my favorite right now. I mean, I love the pheasant. Obviously, that's king for me. But when I went woodcock hunting last year, I was like, yeah, I want to do this every year. The flight pattern, they're like fast but slow. All of the ones I shot, they were in front of us. The dogs kind of went on point, but then when they flushed, all 4 that I shot, they flushed and they flew back at me. So I found that
happens quite often. Like
that's kind of what I was told is that's pretty common. And that's what I loved about it is because they're coming at you and it's almost like they don't see you, but sometimes maybe they see you. I'm not sure what they're thinking, but they're kind of like dodging the trees and this and that. So the flight pattern's crazy, but yet they're not as fast as a quail. And then they're so small that, 7.5, you get 1 or 2 pellets in them and they're going to go down. So they're not, I wouldn't say it's an extremely difficult bird to hit per se, because I used an open choke as open as I could get and 7.5 shot, and you just kind of spray it out there and your odds are pretty good from the little bit I did it. But yeah, you want to talk about fun. Those are a blast.
Especially with how tight they hold. I mean, they just hold so tight.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got pictures with like my foot almost stepping on one and the dog right there. Like, are you ever going to fly? I mean, a buddy of mine, we have a great story from a buddy of mine. His dog, he has a deaf setter, 100% deaf. So it's very hard to call her off a point because you don't want it to be a negative experience.
Yeah.
Right. So he had a woodcock and she had it pinned and this thing was underneath this thick brush. And he's sitting there trying to throw sticks inside there. Like you could not get in it. So he's sitting there trying to throw sticks through this brush to get this bird to fly. And finally he had to like crawl through it.
I've heard stories of those woodcock doing that. Yeah. They'll just, if they get in a thick bush and they feel safe, they'll just sit there. Yeah. But to just kind of put a bow back on the county thing, I knew that financially, I'm not one of those people that has money to go to out west every year or things like, don't know a lot about it. So, I mean, I know you can all learn about it and study, but I was like, I just wanted to set myself up for something I could do here locally. And then so in 2020, I started it. And now after 2 full seasons, I'm at 19 of 99 counties. I did 9 my first year. I did 10 last season. My goal is 10 every year. So of course, if you add that up, it'd be about a 10-year challenge. So it's something that I'm trying very, very hard to accomplish with this Griffin that I got. It's going to be tight. I think it's going to be tight with age, with her just turning 4. But I'm like, if I can do it somehow in the next 6 years, and it's slowly kind of getting a little bit of steam itself in regards to some local people kind of reaching out saying, hey, would love to hunt with you when you get to my county. Please reach out. Would love to at least send you in the right direction and things like that. I've been a little leery on taking people up on that. I hunted with a few people last year. It's a fine edge for me in regards to I want to meet everybody. Like I want to meet all of them.
Right.
But at the same time, there's a little piece of this where it's like finding the ground, scouting it, and getting that bird accomplished by myself and my dog is like part of the goal.
Sure.
And so I think how I'm kind of trying to balance where if 10's my goal year, maybe I try to do half of those by myself and half of them with meeting up with kind of some other people. Actually, last year, all the people I met up with, essentially, except for a couple guys, were all out of state. So Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. So I don't know how that turned out, but
that's kind of cool, though.
Yeah,
it's cool that people are recognizing this challenge from out like a completely different state, and they're coming to Iowa, and they're like, "Hey, let's go hunt." I mean, it's just cool how small the upland community really is in some ways.
So 100% agree with that, Brad. When I started this 2 years ago, I didn't even start it. I was talking to a gentleman at Pheasant Fest, and he told me, he's like, well, you're going to document this journey, right? And I said, yeah, I'm going to take a picture of me and my dog and the bird in every parking lot. And then at the end, I'm going to have 99 pictures and be like, here, I've done it. And he's like, no, you need to put this online. People are going to like pick up on this. They're going to be intrigued by this. Like, you need to document this for people. So I said, fine. Like, I'm not, and I still have a full-time job. I don't do this for a living by any means. And so I just said, okay, I'll start an Instagram and just post my pictures and my stories on there. And if you're interested, great, you can follow along. If not, no problem. And it's just slowly kind of turned into, getting able to do podcasts and talk about hunting in Iowa and habitat and things like that. So it's slowly kind of taken on a beast in its own of, becoming a small platform where I can talk and promote the habitat about Iowa. Something I'm super passionate about, being a lifelong Iowan and hunting here. And I think there's a lot of stuff online like South Dakota, everybody get out to South Dakota. Like many states, Wisconsin, Minnesota too. There's all that publicity. Numbers are down and this and that. And if you put the time and energy in, I've seen with boots on the ground firsthand, I've been in fields with 250, 300 birds flushing. Now they may be 200 yards ahead of us, but we have fields in Iowa like that. And that's the kind of stuff I think guys are picturing when they go to South Dakota. And you can definitely get into sections and counties of Iowa where there's that kind of habitat and birds, which is great. Now, we don't want to get the secret out there too much,
right?
But we're not just
we're not naming counties. We're not naming counties. We're not saying, oh, go stay at Uncle Ma's lodge. No.
And Iowa DNR does a roadside count every year, and so they have their maps where they highlight gray, dark, black. So I mean, you can get online and they have a whole 20-some plus page report and a map that they release every August, late August, early September. So, I mean, if you're an out-of-state guy coming in, there's plenty of information that's released right before the season in regards to, a target area of maybe 4 or 5 counties and head in that direction.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's nice when the DNR gives you enough information to at least make you dangerous, right? Make it worth the drive. I'm not personally a big pheasant hunter. I prefer to chase grouse and woodcock, but you have my interest peaked though, because I'm not a big pheasant hunter because I've never really chased wild pheasants.
Yeah.
Wisconsin doesn't have a ton of wild pheasants.
Yep.
But now you have my interest peaks because Iowa isn't that far away to go chase pheasant.
Not at all. And there's a lot of guys I know in Minnesota and Wisconsin, they'll get the Iowa license that live kind of in those southern county tiers, and they just kind of hop back and forth over the border throughout the season. And I think Minnesota actually starts like a week before us. So some guys will go up there to knock the rust off their dogs that first week, and then they come down to Iowa and shoot all my birds. No, I'm kidding.
Go back to Minnesota.
Yeah. No, I mean the Iowa guys. The Iowa guys go up there.
Got it.
A week before Iowa to knock the rust off their dogs. Then they come back home to Iowa, and they're all tuned up where I go out opening weekend, and now I'm just knocking the rust off.
What are your laws like in Iowa for running public land before the season starts?
So we cannot run dogs on public land until after July 15th in the state of Iowa. That allows for the nesting season to take place. At least a first initial nest is kind of how they look at that. Sure. So right now, no public dogs out there on ground.
Right. I mean, Wisconsin's different. Wisconsin is tax day through August 1st, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So now we have
15th.
training. We have training areas, like we have county parks and stuff that have big, like 200 acres of CRP, and it says dog training facility can be used. within that window of, I think it's January 10th when the season closes until July 15th, basically.
Got it. So you really can't run. So you can't legally run your dog in spring on wild birds then.
Nope. So personally, I have joined NAVDA, Iowa. It's the western side of Illinois and the eastern side of Iowa. It's the Iowa NAVDA group.
Okay.
I do some training with those guys, and that's all on private ground of just members
Sure.
of the group that donate their ground. And then I'm also a member of a hunting club, which it kind of extends me till the end of March. But from March until July, it's kind of NAVDA or utilizing just some of the dog training grounds that are here locally at a park.
And that's real similar. I mean, that's similar. We can't run dogs. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's it's either April 1st or April 15th through August.
And that
1st.
just makes sense.
Right. It's for the nesting birds and everything else. But we do have this unique opportunity where you can't, if you want to, and I know guys that do, and I've done it before as well when I had younger dogs and wanted more experience. I mean, I would run my dog on that northern woodcock migration. I mean, you can't shoot. But
coming back.
Coming back. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
didn't even think about that.
Like right now is when I'd probably start to be getting out there because everything's it's not quite thawed enough yet, but soon, real soon.
A week or so.
Yeah. But I mean, run your dog. I mean, it's great wild bird experience. And rather than a shotgun, I just bring a decent camera with.
Yeah. And this last week, I've really been seeing the geese moving through here. So that makes sense that things are coming back up. I wish they'd hang around Iowa a little longer. I mean, at least like 4 to 5 days. So you can try to slip, kind of, rumor is they're here, and you can try to slip over there for maybe a half day, just pop a couple. But they're super interesting birds. I mean, when I got my hands on my first one, I shot the big eyes and obviously the beak. And I got home and was like doing all sorts of research on woodcock because I went up there to grouse hunt. And woodcock was the bonus.
Sure.
And I came home and I'm like, member of the Grouse Woodcock Society now. I'm like watching all these YouTube videos. I'm like, I'm grouse hunting every year. Like, this is awesome. Now I was very fortunate that I had a friend that took me that has gone to Wisconsin for the last 16 years with him and his dad. So they know the timber cuts, they know where to go, and they go up twice a year. And on their first hunt every year, they try to take somebody new that has never hunted. And I was fortunately that person to go. Now, real quick, just to not get down a rabbit hole, but you're all about stories here. I got to say how I met this guy.
All right.
I do home inspections for a living.
Okay.
And I was doing home inspections at a house. And I was upstairs at this house, and I could see out the window into the neighbor's yard, and it had a white vinyl privacy fence. He had 3 pigeon lofts out there. And I'm like, you only have pigeon lofts for 2 reasons. You either race pigeons or you train dogs. And it was in the midst of COVID, just about a year and a half ago. And so the gentleman was working from home, so I went over and knocked. Probably super creepy, but I went and knocked on his door and I said, hey, I got dogs. I saw your pigeon lofts. I was kind of snooping over the fence. Do you train dogs? And he's like, yeah. Turns out the guy's like a year older than me, lives a couple blocks from me, which is another reason why I kind of wanted to get linked up with him. Like, he lived close. And now we've come super close. He's like my training partner all summer long because he didn't have anyone to train with. I didn't have anyone to train with, but he has all these pigeons and they like reproduce, and he's got the homers and the kills and all that.
Nice.
And then it turned into, he was like, hey, do you want to go grouse hunting? Like, I try to take somebody new every year. And so he was able to get me on the woodcock and get that red phase, all by just going over and then, taking 5 minutes off the job site and just be like, hey, I want to now talk about your pigeons.
What you got pigeons for there, boss?
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Kevin's his name. We've come super, super close. I'm actually helping him move Saturday. So I don't know if he's going to have me tearing lofts down or what we're doing, but he's moving out to an acreage. So I'm super excited that he can kind of expand his training setup, and he's getting a puppy as well. So it'll be a lot of good stuff in the off season for us.
Nice. So is that a little self-serving that you're happy he's getting that acreage so you have more training opportunity as well? No, I'm just
actually, I probably it's interesting. He actually used to live next to like an elementary school that had a ton of grass. So we would take our bird launchers over there and like train, hide them like around. They had like decorative grass and things like that. So we'd hide the launchers around that. And that was actually super interesting. So I don't know what he's going to do. He did tell me he's going to have to do all new, like recreate all new homers, because obviously his birds are, used to going to the old place. So he'll kind of just have a breeding stock now, and then he'll have to kind of retrain some birds as well. So it'll be interesting.
That'd be fun. I mean, if you can be involved in that part, it'd be really cool to learn how to train a homer. I mean,
he is going to help me. Actually, I'm going to build a loft here at home, and then I'm going to buy some squeakers off him, they call them. and then he is going to show me how to do that. That way I can go out and kind of do some training. We have a local nature center here, so
Okay.
it's not really, hunting ground. I think you can have your dog out there. No one's ever yelled at me, I guess. There's no pheasants or anything like that out there. It's kind of in town. But my goal was to try to be able to get my homing pigeons to go from at least there and back to home, so I can do, maybe just like a little popper pistol type training and steadiness type work without having to actually need to be out on an acreage and do that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to learn, and he's supposed to be getting me involved with that once I get my coop up here in the next month.
No, that'd be cool. I mean, it's just a different aspect and just something a little unique, right? Not everybody knows how to train pigeons.
Not only that, but I've been just watching some YouTube videos and stuff like that. Like homing pigeons and racing pigeons there's hundreds of thousands of dollars involved in that world. I mean, Mike Tyson has homing pigeons. It's a huge deal in China. I mean, big guys in China, like they put millions into pigeons. We're talking lofts where like these birds are in their cages, and every like 4 hours there's a conveyor belt that like moves and it cleans off their little loft area of the poop. There's a whole video on there of Mike Tyson went over somewhere overseas. It might have been around Egypt. It's like a half-hour YouTube video. He like tours this guy's facility when he was getting into racing pigeons. It's insane. And I've always pictured them as these dirty birds you find under bridges and stuff in cities. And if you get up and close to some of these animals and some of the homers, they have some phenomenal colors and spotting and whites and black spots on them, and they're actually some really interesting and very smart birds.
My father-in-law raised pigeons for years and years and years, since my wife was like 5 or 6 until just a few years ago. He raised pigeons almost his entire life. I don't know why. He just enjoyed it. He just enjoyed raising pigeons. It was his thing.
Did he do the homing aspect, or did he just raise them and sell them?
Raised them and sold them.
Yeah. A lot of people eat them. Evidently, like when they're really young, that's the time to eat them. I don't know time frame, but I think less than a year old, but large enough to have a little bit of meat on them. But I have a buddy that says they're served as like a fine dish in some, high-end restaurants.
So I've been in the dove field before, and we've had some pigeons come through which have met the same demise as doves.
That'll happen.
Maybe I'm not normal, but I would say most of those pigeons I think ate better than the doves.
Oh, so you ate them. That's great.
We did. But now who I was with brought a very good explanation for that, saying a lot of these pigeons eat nothing but corn and live in corn silos. They're just corn fed.
So I could see that being true. Like if you were to pick up catch some urban pigeons, I could see where they probably aren't going to be the tastiest, because they're probably roaming around and picking up whatever garbage off the street they can get. But yeah, you get out into the wild where those guys are going into the barns every night. That's where I get my kill birds. Actually, I have some Amish kids that go out and catch them out of barns for me at night, and then just pay them for that. I bet those, since they're going out, because they're out in cornfields every day, or just eating right there next to the grain bin. I bet they probably wouldn't taste that bad. I'll be honest, my kill pigeons I use for training, I've just usually shot them and disposed of them. But maybe
you don't even cook them for the dog.
No, I haven't thought of that, to be honest, Brad.
Sometimes
they get kind of mangly because I'm trying, use like 6 shot and you get it back and you're like, okay.
So I mean, I made venison cheesesteaks the other night.
Ooh.
And I took all like the trimmings and like all the silver skin pieces and stuff I cut off with fat and whatnot. I cooked all those up afterwards, and right now they're in a little Pyrex sticks in the fridge, and I give those to my dog. Like all that little stuff, like I use as like just unseasoned protein. Like I don't season it, I just cook it, and then I use it, like I add it to her food. And same with like pigeon. I've even done it with woodcock. Like if I go out woodcock hunting for the weekend and I get one bird, I'll just cook that up. I'll tear the breast in some pieces and I'll throw it on her food like for a couple nights. Like,
we've done that with pheasant. Just you get one day. It's like, all right, fry it up for the dog quick. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I guess going back to what I was saying. Yeah, you just have this perception of it's a pigeon, but I need to try it. Worst case scenario, it doesn't taste that good, and I feed the dog, right?
Right, exactly. Like
and with most game birds, I know it's all about prep. Most of it's 90% preparation.
Agreed.
And 5% cooking it right, and then the other 5, you just hope you like it, right?
Right. But yeah, Might as well give it a shot. I mean, what do you got? I mean, I've had it before, and
Got nothing to lose. I'm paying for the meat anyways.
right. As long as you don't decimate it with some 5-shot at like 10 yards.
Yeah. That doesn't happen too often.
Just occasionally. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just pre-tenderized. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I like it.
So, because I gotta know, what got you into the Griff, like Griffons? What, like, I'm assuming you started hunting with your dad and your brother, so I'm assuming you grew up with a hunting dog.
So we grew up and we had a Brittany.
Okay.
I don't remember it that well. I remember having it at the house. I remember it always being around, but I don't remember like seeing it in the field much. It was just very mean, and it was an outdoor dog. So that's why I don't have a lot of memories with it. I mean, it like latched onto another dog, and my dad could not get it off of it, and he had to put like a 9-iron club in its mouth and like twist it sideways to get the dog to release. So we eventually got rid of her.
Ooh.
So I need to ask my dad how much we really hunted with her, but I was like 5 when we had her.
Okay.
And then we got a German short hair pointer as I got a little older, and had hunted with pointers before we had her, just with other friends and stuff. So it was around the GSPs for quite a while. After my dad's GSP passed away, he was looking for something that was a little more hyperallergenic, didn't shed that much. And he got turned on to the Griffons. And his dog is 5, mine is 4. So he got his a year before mine, hunted and helped him train his for the first year, and really just liked the temperament of his dog and the versatility as far as, at that time that was before my 99 counties. I'm like, I'm going to get into like waterfowl and goose and stuff like that. And this dog would be great for that. And then maybe some NAVDA competitions, things of that nature. So just the versatility aspect was another piece. So got my Griff a year after my dad, and we've just been super, super happy with him. I'm really itching right now for a Llewellyn setter. I know that's throw a side piece into the mix, but because people have been they're like, well, you think you're going to get another Griffin? I'm like, I would love another Griffin, but I was talking to someone recently that's like, why would you hunt with the same dog your whole life? Like, each dog has, its pros and cons. You're young, get something else, and then as you get older, if I've had these 4 or 5 different breeds, I'm going to go back to a Griff, make that decision or whatever. Because the Griffins, they hunt, at least mine and my dad's, they hunt slower and more methodical. 100%. And they don't get out there and run like those GSPs. So sometimes doing this 99 county thing, I do get into some bigger pieces, and it's like, all right, Sophie, I need you to like get out there a little more and cover a little more ground for us, because they're just going to run circles on us if we don't. And so I hunted with a Gordon setter and multiple Llewellyn setters this last season, and having one of those dogs be able to range out a little further, not as crazy and as far as the GSP, but that 75-yard range, she can hang back at that 30 to 40-yard range, and it just created an awesome duo in the field.
I know a lot of people that hunt with multiple breeds and styles for that exact reason. I had a guy from Wisconsin on the show. He's running a Griff and a GSP and loves that combo.
Oh, that would be good luck birds.
Right. There's a guy I talked to out, Nick. Oh man, I think it's Nick. I'm sorry, Nick, if that's your name. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm on the spot. He's out in Cali. He runs Brittany's and Spaniels, like Brittany's and then Springers. Yeah. Brittany's and Springers, or GSPs and Springers, or even English pointers and Springers, and loves the duo of a pointing and flushing dog combo.
Yeah, there's some guys that are starting to get into that a little bit. I hunted with a couple flushing dogs this year. We never were to a point where like the pointing dog went on point, the flushing one came in and got it. Not being a trainer, it would be something that I would definitely like advise people, do your research before you try to bring the two together.
So he trains his to sit on a point.
I have seen one other dog do that, and I think that that's pretty smart, especially if you're hunting with a pointing dog as well.
Right. And he says it actually comes pretty natural. And there's some other things I talked to him too about. I talked to him like, what about steady? Like, that's got to throw steady for a world. And he goes, he's like, it doesn't. It really doesn't. He's like, you'd be shocked. He's like, come out to California. We'll go hunt some quail. I'm like, ooh, I like quail. Never done it before. But Yeah, I mean, so I like hearing like you're like looking at. I mean, I love my Griff. There's a chance I might always own a Griff, but I might own another breed with my Griff. Not currently because my Griff is a rescue that hates other dogs, which is a completely different story. So it's not fair to her at 10 years old to bring a puppy in, knowing she's going to be completely stressed out, full on anxiety mode constantly. Like we've given her a home. She's got her forever home. She's doing so much better now. I'm not going to throw that on her to let her last couple of years be miserable. That's not fair to her. But to roll back quick to what you were saying about like you wish your Griff would range a little farther. I had a person on the podcast that made her awesome. Like he's like, you can't push a rope. He's like, you could always bring a dog back in
100%,
but you can't push a rope.
Yep.
And I never thought of it. I've always thought of it, but I've never thought of it like spoken like that. And it's so true. I mean, Griffs they're a great dog. They seem to have a tendency from the ones I've hunted with and the owners I've talked to, they tend to range closer than like the English pointers or the setters, which is great. That's their natural instinct. And I know there's exemptions to every rule. And I know there's Griff owners out there that have dogs that range and they range like anything else. They have that drive. I mean, but it seems consistently, and people joke, they call it an old man dog. I don't know if have you heard someone call the Griff an old man dog yet?
I have not heard that, but I tell people all the time, and so I guess in a roundabout way, I call them the old man dog because I tell people all the time, as I say, as you get older, that would be a great breed to look into as you slow down. But I think what a lot of people don't understand with the Griff, and I think you'd agree with this, Brad, is out of any dog I've been around, a hunting dog, house pet, these dogs are the most how do I want to word it? They almost overthink everything. They watch you. They know what you do. They know and I know all of your dogs know your routines and stuff like that. But they're almost human-like, is how I describe it. And they know how to manipulate you. And I think it's one of those things where you just got to walk a fine line of pushing your dog, but at the same time not letting them manipulate you. If that makes any sense.
Nope, it does. I've had that conversation with other Griff owners as well, and I'm sure someone out there hates when I make this reference because I don't remember who said it, so I can't properly quote it. But they said you have to have a firm hand and a white glove with a Griff.
100%. And I guess I kind of lost my train of thought mid-sentence with that, but it was just going back to the training piece of it. Is they are slower in the field, and obviously that's a tendency of the breed. But I think it's because they're out there just analyzing everything from, this just sent, and what they're seeing and what they're hearing. They're just very, very in tune with their environment, where I think you get a lot of those other dogs, they're just out there going balls to the wall, and then they know what they're doing, but then all of a sudden it's like, scent, bam, point, 150 yards away, and it's like, okay, yeah, my dog did his job, let's go. And it's like, yeah, it did, but at the same time, it was just covering miles of ground, zigzagging, and kind of came upon its thing. So yeah, definitely they think about everything from the training to the hunt. Very methodical.
They're great. They really are a great breed. I mean, they hunt. I love the fact that they hunt close for grouse hunting because I like a close working dog for grouse hunting. She has such an amazing off switch at home. Granted, we give her plenty of exercise, but she can turn it on in the field and she can really turn it off when she comes inside. I mean, I really do love the breed, and I really see a Griff being in my life, but I do agree though. Like, I'm just turning 40. I mean, I want to also experience other breeds because unless you're going to have 5 or 6 dogs in your house, you're limited by the amount of years you're going to live on how many breeds you can experience.
Yep. And it's funny. The gentleman that told me, like, you need to try some other breeds. They have 5 breeds. And I'm like, I get it. I'm like, I can never get on that level, but I can see when you have that many together, I can definitely see how you can be like, you look at it as a toolbox. And I hunted with this gentleman in Kansas and South Dakota and Iowa this year. And we'd pull up to a field and he'd be like, what Swiss Army knife do we need? You know what I mean? Sure. And we'd be like, all right, let's put Sophie out. Let's put your Llewellyn out. Or let's just do your Gordon Setter and your Lab if we're busting through some cattail type stuff. And so it was kind of nice to just be able to put the pieces together.
That's cool. That is the one thing I lack, and it's no one's fault. It's just because I rescued my dog. I don't have enough dog power right now. She's 10. We keep her in good shape. I run her still. But for a week-long grouse camp, she can't hunt every single day, twice a day at a week-long grouse camp. She needs days off.
Yep.
So that is where like the 2-dog household or a 3-dog or even a 4-dog, don't tell my wife because she doesn't listen to this.
You sound like me, Brad.
But I mean, to look at trips like that where it's like, I need more dog power.
I do a ton of 3, 4, 5-day trips throughout the season, especially doing my county thing. Like if I'm going to drive 4 hours, I try to be over there a couple days and knock out a few counties in the area if I can. I always,
Sure.
But that's the biggest thing is, after 4 solid days, that 5th day or so, she's still out there, but she used to range at 30, 40 yards. Now she's about 20, 25. And it's like, all right, we need to move a little more. And like you said, you can't push a rope. You just can't. It's the reality of it. So to be able to, when you get into those 3-4 day trips, change them out is key. When I was up grouse and woodcock hunting, the guys I was with had Brittany's, and they were like, they were super pumped to have me and my dad's Griff there because they're like, we've heard how close these dogs hunt. And just from everything we've heard, they just sound like they would be the perfect grouse and woodcock dog. And I'm like, well, they've never smelt either one. So let's see what happens. And they did all right. But those Brittany's that have been up there, the last 5-6 seasons, I mean, they of course ran the show. They knew what they were doing and what sense they were looking for. So it was definitely a learning curve for the Griffs. But I'm hoping to get back next October. He already asked me, so we'll see if we can kind of build on 2 days of hunting last year.
Grouse is a heck of a teacher for a dog. It really
Especially
is.
when you're only hunting, like him, he's only hunting 2 weekends out of the year. He usually does like Columbus Day, and then we'll go back 3 weeks later, and that's about it. And then once Iowa pheasant opens, it's just full-blown pheasant here in Iowa.
Yeah, grouse are a humbling bird for man and dog. I truly do believe that. And if you have an amazing grouse dog, it's just because of the amount of hours you spent chasing wild grouse.
That's my understanding from the research and videos and stuff that I've watched. Is it's just all about contacts and miles.
I mean, they're such a unique bird. I mean,
and smart bird.
They're very smart. They don't take pressure well. They'll run. They'll fly when pressured. I mean, it takes a very educated dog to be able to handle them properly. And I'll be honest, my Griff messes up over half of them. She does still. I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. I mean,
well, they're just they just get behind trees and stuff. I mean, they know you're coming. They'll get behind a big aspen or whatever the pines are that are up in Wisconsin. Then they flush, and you hear them when they take off. I mean, it's a very distinct sound, which the guys are like, you'll know when they take off. And I heard my first one. I was like, oh.
Yep. I mean, way different sound than a woodcock.
Yeah. I heard the bust of the one that got up. The gentleman I was with, Kevin, just yelled grouse, flew over the whole group, and I just looked up, and luckily I was the one that happened to get on it. If I wasn't going to get it, my dad was next to me and he was about to pull the trigger. I kind of felt bad with him being a little older. I was like, man, it would have been really cool to see him get one. Obviously I'm younger, I'll have more opportunities.
Right.
But he was still tickled pink to just see someone in the group get one and to see the woodcock and stuff like that. It was still a good experience for him.
That's awesome.
And sometimes it's luck of the draw where you're at in the line. I mean, you can try to, hey, I shot one, I'll go over here, and you think that's the good side, and your side ends up being where all the birds are, or vice versa.
The fact you had a grouse flush in a manner that it gave multiple people a shot opportunity blows my mind.
Yeah, and that's what he said. Is he's like, they never come across the line like that. And it was Kevin, his dad, and I think they kind of were waiting for it to get down to us to give us the chance. Yeah. Now my friend Kevin later that day, he got a grouse and a woodcock on the same flush, and evidently that's a big deal and called something. And he took a picture of it and sent it into Grouse. What's the little grouse? The Grouse Journal. I'm drawing a blank. I'm a member of it. They send it out.
Rough Grouse Society.
The Grouse Tales. They send, I think like every quarterly, they send out like a typed up. It's very old school. They send up a typed up newsletter with black and white pictures in it.
Sure.
And I think some guy just does it out of his house, literally. And so, he got. Do you know what that's called? I'm not sure, Brad.
I don't. I've never heard of this before, and that's funny because, like, I'm a member of the Grouse Society. I just had to look because we talked about this when you said you ran out and became a woodcock. Like,
your poster.
Well, no, I have the charter member patch from becoming. Here, I'll grab it.
I was looking up at the big circle over your shoulder. Okay. Got the
Charter
Woodcock
member.
patch.
That was from the year they created the American Woodstock Society. I joined
That's
the
awesome.
inaugural year. I still have the patch. I've always thought about putting it on a vest. I'm like, I change gear too often because I'm a gear snob. And it's not that I'm a gear snob. I just like new gear. Like I like trying new things. I like trying new features.
We're two peas in a pod. Don't get us together. Our wallets will be broke. We'll have too many dogs. We won't have our wives.
Like, so you get it. So I'm like, I don't want to put it on my vest because I'll probably change vests 5 times in the next 7 years.
Well, and I'm kind of sentimental with my stuff. So like, to me, like yourself, you know, you kind of hang on to that memento and you're like, man, this is like from the original, like, yeah, I could put it on a vest and take it off, but then it may get beat up and you just end up sitting to the side and it doesn't really ever go anywhere or isn't really shown per se, except for here and there. But
right.
It's just, just to have it and know that it's there. That's like me. I wouldn't use it either.
So it's funny too, because when that was the year Pheasant Fest was actually in Wisconsin. So not only did I sign up for that, that was the first year I ever actually got to have any interaction with a Griff in person because the Pointing Griff On Club was there. So, I mean, just funny, like just thinking about this patch brought back all those memories.
How far are you from Minneapolis?
5 hours, I think, 4.5, 5.
Okay. Pheasant Fest is going to be there next year, February 17th through 19th-ish. Don't quote me on that, but
sure.
Right in the middle of February next year. So if that's something you're ever interested in getting back over to, I mean, I'll be there, and I know there's a lot of other people in the upland community and probably a lot of people you've talked to even in the fishing world and just digital hunting world. It's just a great, as you've been before and know, it's a great place of like-minded individuals. And if that's relatively close to you, get over there, Brad, because if we don't connect in the field before then, we can definitely connect there.
I think I'm going to have to, because I went, and that was however many years ago when the Woodcock Society started this. That doesn't 2014, I'm assuming, because this.
So I was going to guess like 13, 12-ish. So 14 sounds about right. I wasn't at that one, but I remember when they were in Wisconsin.
I'm assuming on this date code. So, and that was well before I was on social media for anything hunting wise. Like I didn't use that event to like catch up with people I met on social. I mean,
Facebook was still probably popular then. Now, right, that's kind of dead, and it seems like people are on Instagram and.
So yeah, I mean, to be close enough again that I can go there without like making a trip out of it, because that's why I didn't go to this year. I'm like, I got to make a trip out of it, and that's kind of one less hunting trip I can do.
100%.
And if I'm gonna choose between going to a hunting festival or actually going out hunting, I'm gonna choose hunting every single time.
Smart man, Brad. You're a smart man.
Sorry, Pheasant Fest. That's just the way it goes.
Yep.
So yeah. Oh man, it's been great talking to you. I want to give you the last couple minutes here so you can let everybody know how to find you, social media, website, anything like that you got going on.
Yeah, first and foremost, Brad, I just appreciate you having me on here. I love the format, just real low key and just kind of like you said, talking. It's been great. Hopefully, some listeners have been able to take a few nuggets away from some of the hot air that we've blown out today. But you can find me on Instagram. That's the main place I am. It's Iowa_bird chaser. But if you just type in Iowa bird chaser, it'll come up. I do have a Facebook page. I do not post a lot on my Facebook page, but it's just kind of one of those things that I created. So, you know, if you don't have Instagram and you still want to shoot me a message or connect in some way, you got a way to. So I do talk to some people through Instagram Messenger or Facebook Messenger, excuse me. But the bulk of it is all on Instagram. And then at the end of each season, one thing I'm doing with the 99 counties is I'm also trying to film every county. So I'm trying to film every pheasant I get. So at the end of every season, on Sundays, usually at 7 p.m., as long as I have videos to crank out for as many birds I got in that season, usually hoping for 10 weeks. Every Sunday at 7 p.m., I release a YouTube video of a county that I shot that last year. Some people have kind of asked, hey, why don't you release those while you're hunting and things like that? One, it's just hectic during the season because being self-employed, I try to bag a lot of my time off for the hunting season so I can go. But also, we all go through that end of season withdrawal when everyone's states close up. And I just kind of thought it'd be a nice, fun way to kind of create some action and give people some action to watch beyond the season as we all sit at home with our dogs and put a little more weight around our waistlines as we get ready for summer and the snow to melt. So those come out at the end of the season. I'm currently in the middle of releasing those, so I'm not sure. I have another at least 3 to 4 weeks left. So like I said, those come out on Sunday at 7 p.m. The longest they get is about 10 minutes. The shortest they are is about 5 minutes or so. So just typically kind of shows you what the day looked like in the field. I'm still kind of molding what I want them long term to be. It's just a learning curve. So I'm always open to feedback. So if anyone gets out and checks out any of the YouTube videos, feel free to leave comments of things you want to see, questions you have. Maybe you want to learn how I do scouting, stuff like that. And I can tie different pieces of that into it. But just being one guy, it's just kind of hard to record, drone shots and the hunt itself and do research on the county that I'm in. So trying to crank out as much as I can, but definitely just kind of seasonal with the hunting being seasonal and then also work as well. So, but get on there, check it out. Iowa Bird Chaser can be found on most of all the social media platforms. And I love just interacting. So if anyone's thinking about coming to Iowa or has any questions, do not hesitate to reach out and utilize us as a resource as well.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I didn't even know about the YouTube videos. I'll definitely have to check that out. For
yeah, please do. That's kind of where my heart and passion is.
All right. I didn't even know about that. I'll have to definitely check into that. And for everyone listening, I will have links in the description to all of his different pages so you can easily find it. Again, Nick, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been fun talking birds, talking Griffs, talking this 99 county challenge, which is just awesome. I love the goal. I just love the whole thing behind it.
Well, I appreciate it. And I just appreciate everyone that's taken time to reach out to me, taken interest in what I'm doing, and followed along. It's definitely something I didn't think anybody would be interested in. And I love getting to talk about the state of Iowa, upland hunting, getting to meet people like yourself, Brad, like-minded individuals. So it's definitely super neat and something I hope I can continue to do for quite a while.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a great conversation. To all the listeners, as always, thank you again for tuning in. Without you, I wouldn't do this. And until next time, keep chasing that experience.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You can support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures, your Midwest premier paddle sports destination. Go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes today.